Hello, I'm Ryan J. Cheshire. I read and wrote Scooby-Doo and the Red Devil Demon. So, this audiobook, the ideas for it initially started out years ago, and it was not long after I did Scooby-Doo and the Zombie Island Civil War that I wanted to sort of continue in the same sort of direction. But with Scooby Doo and the Zombie Island Civil War, I wanted it to feel basically like those original Scooby Doo direct video films, the first four that were done. Maybe a slightly darker, more mature tone, but basically within line. With Red Devil Demon, I just wanted to basically just go as far as I felt it would go before it felt like it would become too much. So with this one, I wanted, there to be actual, proper, just flat out as murderers and a murderer, and that's amongst the Scooby Gang and Mystery Incorporated. I also make sure to create a timeline so that basically what I accepted and that is canon and what wasn't canon in sort of the universe and that I was extending upon was also consistent with it as well. For example, seasons 1 and 2, basically all of Scooby Doo, Where Are You, the Scooby Doo show, but only season one only of the Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo show. Basically, all of that stuff is essentially canon, and that in this sort of timeline I'm trying to create for it, for everything to sort of make sense. I guess you could also argue Pup Named Scooby Doo could also technically fit into that, but basically I wanted it to be consistent in that with those and that, so which is why I also make a few references to previous things in it. So I began recording these back in 2020 and releasing them back along on then, but basically I got to chapter 4 and finished chapter 4, and then basically I then had a massive gap until now. Basically, I've finished recording these on the 25th of October 2023, recording the final, sixth and final chapter of these, and you might be wondering why was there such a big gap and that between them, and basically for several years and that I was busy helping my granny move into an apartment and that at the time, and helping her do that, and it took years and that, and then she being in and out of hospital and that a lot, and unfortunately on the 13th of October 2023, which is a Friday as well, she passed away unfortunately on that day. And that was kind of like the driving force, okay, to finish this, because I can't remember whether she listened to the first four tracks of Scooby-Doo and the Red Devil Demon. I can't remember whether she did or didn't, but she did listen to Zombie Island Civil War, and she did quite enjoy that one. So it kind of gave me like the push and that, to this year, just like this year I'm gonna finish it. So that's what I did. Like a few days later, I started work and doing it. It was all written. It was all written. At least the outline of it was written way back in 2020, I think it was, or it might have even been 2019. But it was all like done way back then. But yeah, unfortunately, just things kind of just change. Unfortunately, and things just happen to not converse correctly. I was debating a lot of the time whether to have a real sort of supernatural entity in this one, because I didn't really want to have the formula get scale. So I decided to go about Witch's Ghost, where basically for 90% of the story and that it is just someone in a costume and that, and then for the very end bit, then have the real sort of supernatural entity and that sort of appear at the end. It was kind of a thing I was and ahhing about, but I decided, I prefer the supernatural ones where there's a real monster and that in there, but obviously I also wanted that mystery and that also be in there as well. So that's how I kind of went down Witch's Ghost route and combined them both in there. For the most part, things did not change in that. I actually went back to the original, cause I've still got it on my Google Docs, the original Red Devil Demon story sort of outlines of things that I wrote, because generally with these things, I basically write a plot synopsis for everything, but any particular like details about things or particular dialogue I always come up with on the fly for this. So basically, the outline is already written for the plotting, what needs to happen in each sort of scene, I guess, each event, but the actual, little details of things in there are generally played about with quite a lot. Now, the ending is something that I did change from the original, mainly to do with the way the Red Devil Demon is defeated, because in the original version, it's actually the Red Devil Demon, who's named Rashta. Basically, he's summoned back into the portal, or a portal that appears in flames, and the gang, conveniently find last minute basically papers and that to chant an exorcism to basically get rid of the Red Devil Demon, which I kind of just didn't like. I wanted there to be a bit more of a reason why. I don't know if I succeeded in that, but I then decided to change that to the portal idea, and with the portal, then that it's basically, no matter what, it's basically a one-way portal for people to basically be sacrificed through, and for the Red Devil Demon's sort of followers and that to come through. But if he goes through himself, it's just a one-way trip, so he's no longer there, and then everything sort of goes back to normal kind of thing. I think I might have gone down that original route if I'd have set it up a bit more. I think I should have set it up a little bit more on how things, should have ended there. I was just like, okay, I know how I want it to end, and that's through basically just getting sucked through in that portal to end him. But I don't know if I set it up too well. Well, to be honest, I didn't really set it up well. And one of the major differences is in the ending afterwards, because in the original version, basically, Detective Foster lives in that version. He doesn't sacrifice himself or anything. He actually does live in that version. And he basically is the one who basically does what Detective Bow had done before him, and officially clear the gang of all of their charges and that things, since it was someone who was there on the scene like Bow was before them. Then basically there's no like repercussions and stuff like that for them. However, since he dies in the final version, and that the gang do get exonerated of all the crimes due to lack of evidence, because all the evidence has essentially disappeared and that. But because, there was still no official saying one way or the other, was just due to lack of evidence, there's a lot of, suspicions around them. Daphne, something I did want to say up was Daphne thinking about ending Coast to Coast with Daphne Blake, and this was the perfect thing for her to finally, push it over, since the network she would be with, will probably not want to renew it and that anyway. And I wanted this also to be a temporary ending for the gang. I wanted it to basically end for them to, they've had these adventures and that, where they got back together in Zombie Island. They had witches, ghosts, alien invaders, and cyber chase, and then Zombie Island Civil War and that again, which started kicking things off. And then this thing of, okay, they want to split off and that and do their own things again, except this time they are just like splitting off for an uncertain amount of time. And I also basically also put in little sort of teasers, because when I was initially planning these, I initially planned to do 6 books in total. Yeah, I plan to do 6 audiobooks in total for this, which, is completely stupid and was completely unrealistic in that as well. But this was essentially, to tease and sort of split the gang off, so I could then have a solo adventure with Scooby and Shaggy, who were going to reunite with Scrappy, which is why also season 1 of the Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo show was going to happen. But basically, it would have been about, something, happened and that between Scrappy and Shaggy and Scooby and that in their past, where they kind of left things on not the best of terms, and this was going to basically then be resolving that. I'm not quite sure what the story would have been for that, but that would basically be, something sort of about them to fill in the meantime. And then the one after that would be a solo Fred and Daphne one, with bits of Scooby-Doo and that in there. Mainly it would be in flashbacks for the most part and that as well. And then towards the end of the book, that one, the gang would, start to reunite, or there'd be some kind of things to trap them together. And then the final 2 books I would do in that sort of series to close things off properly would be 2 parts. So basically, would be a returning thing. The first one would be the return of the Phantom Virus. So that would be a return there, because I did have a sequel idea that would then lead into the final one, which I'm not going to say who or what would happen in that one. But basically, those ones, although I didn't have any full story outlines and that, I basically had the idea outlines on those on what was going to happen. And but obviously they never came to be. But maybe they will one day. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? Next year, I might excuse me, start doing and that more of these. Who knows? It just depends how I feel and that about them. But yeah, Scooby-Doo and the Red Devil Demon, I'm happy enough with it and that as it is and that. I think for the first one, that kind of I did that. Wasn't a sequel basically to any specific Scooby-Doo thing. It was just like a continuation, another sort of Scooby-Doo thing. I think I was happy enough in that with it, but as I said, a few different things. I think I would set up a few other things and that beforehand for the finale, for the end and that. I think I set up everything fine enough, at least for me personally, with the real Jimmy Wolf being the Red Devil Demon and that himself. But the actual final Red Devil Demon sort of battle thing, I think I kind of felt a bit flat with that one. But yeah, if you did actually listen to this, thank you for listening. Let us know what your thoughts on that about it. And maybe one day, hopefully one day, there'll be more in the future.